Hey, welcome back to another episode of Higher Density Living. We want to continue with this.
Higher! You said, dude, you really did. You pronounced that H like you were like higher density living.
Whip.
Higher!
We are on the Orion Group series here for Orion Group Part 5, which is a subset of the information in the Law of One series by Ra, channeled by Carla Ruckert.
Rah, 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 rah. It's like Lady Gaga.
Gaga.
Yeah, so let's get into one of the things that we just found out, and I think this will be interesting. There was a mention of the Southern Cross.
The Southern Cross.
And these are a group. They're in the Orion Group. So can you explain to me, can you explain when we think of group and then, we see here are these like subgroups or whatever?
Yeah, like what is that? So the statement of fact is when we talk about the Orion Group, it is not like a group of people in the sense of how it's being described by Rob. They talk about the Orion Group as a grouping of stars in a specific sector. And then within that, there are people that reside in that sector in a fourth dimensional or fifth dimensional state, okay, that are trying to influence certain things on Earth, people. So when we say the Orion Group, there are also associations of more service to self-oriented, collectives that sit in other constellation areas. So when Ra is describing where these groups reside, they say, this is the Orion Group. And anyone that associates in that sector of the galaxy that is service to self will be bundled into the Orion Group area, much like individuals of the Southern Cross area, which is in the night sky, which is a set of 5 stars. And from what I understand, these stars of the Southern Cross, you can see them on the flags of Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Samoa, and Brazil. So that's kind of that southern hemisphere. And that's a function of, those 5 stars, Acrux, Mimosa, Garcrux, Emai, and Ginnon. They all have their own individual names, but again, that's another constellation. In the Cassiopeia area, you'll have more people that are living in that area, that grouping of stars of that constellation that are, again, service to self.
And they are living in a different density than we are.
Right. So even though you're like, well, if we're looking at it with the telescope, how come we don't see them? Well, if someone's in a different vibratory plane, if they dimensionally are shifted, either in the 4th or the 5th, that's outside of your 3rd dimensional visible eye spectrum. There's only so much your eyes can pick up on. That's why when you look at certain full spectrum imagery, you get all those beautiful colors like we have up here on the screen of what's going on in this function of Orion.
Right.
You see all the beautiful colors. It's in the X-ray. It's in the gamma level. And that's where you get all these cool shots that you find from like the Hubble Space Telescope and things of that nature. But our eyes don't pick up on that. We see the stars, but we don't see all the dust and everything else that's happening because it sits in a different spectrum.
That makes sense. That makes
okay, cool.
And so, as we hear of these different members of the Orion Group and we look into various galaxies and, like you said, constellations and stuff like that, I'm just super excited when we dive more into these teachings. And what we're really stoked about is the new book series.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Do a shout out for L&L Research here. They came out with every time I see it, they came out with the 40th anniversary edition of the Raw material. Hardbound books, silver flake pages, absolutely gorgeous. Really,
so if you can grab
really
this,
nice.
grab it. It has all 5 books.
Get on eBay for $82.
Yeah, it was on there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's well worth every single penny, and you can share that knowledge with your children and your children's children.
But when I kind of want to get into, let's start right off the bat with wonders.
Yeah.
And because he used the word wonders a lot. So, I want to kind of get these definitions down when we're looking. So we just defined Orion Group and the subsets. Now let's get, the question here says this, and then you can answer from there. Within the wonders, as they incarnate here, be high priority targets, such we say of the Orion Group. Ra says, I am Ra, this is correct. Before we get into Ra's answer, let's have you.
So you have a little bit of a southern twang to what you're saying.
Yes.
It's a wanderer. So
yeah.
if I'm going to wander around
right,
aimlessly, kind of that sort of thing, right? So a wanderer is an entity or a Wesen, as the Germans would call it, that has been in 6 density for quite some time. And they're like, okay, Earth is a little bit of a mess. I'm up here in 6 density. I have learned, done a lot here, but I am willing to sacrifice that knowingness to veil my consciousness and understanding and incarnate into a 3rd/4th density form on this planet to help it transition. Here's the risk. Although it is a selfless thing to do, because of that veil of forgetting, where you come down and you get a new consciousness slate each time, they don't remember that. As a wanderer, this person that was very service to others, 6 density in form, coming down here to incarnate, now these wanderers are like, they can be swung in either direction, highly polarized, because they forget where they came from. So a wanderer we would hope that if they're coming down here to help, that they remember that they're on that path of service to others, and they don't become influenced by the service to self side, because they have such a high resonant energy. And these wanderers, as described by Ra, can typically form a lot of like allergies just to the planet and the environment that we have here. So people that are just like allergic to certain plants, like grasses, things of that nature, quite positive. They're like, the resonation of their body does not resonate with the instability of the planet right now, throws them off in a biological format. So they said a lot of these wanderers will have physical ailments that are actually shown as they come down here and incarnate on this planet. But that's a huge target for the Orion Group. Why? Because the second you become blank slated, they're like, ooh, this person has a lot of energy. Can we use them, who they've forgotten about who they were, and then use that to our advantage? Maybe use these people that have incarnated of a higher density and say their power would be very good for a hierarchical format of control and taking power from other people. Let's put them into positions of resource control. Let's get them to do this. Let's try and influence them negatively. And that's why these wanderers are such a target. But there are 68, by the time this was written, or actually recorded, there was 68 million of them incarnated here on Earth, of ones that were in that upper 6 density and have chose to come back down here to help. If you think about that, that's pretty crazy.
68 million, yeah. I mean, that's how big is the United States?
Well, the United States is about 313 million people.
Yeah, so a quarter of that.
Yeah, and then you have 7.8 billion people on the planet, right?
So there's a percentage. What's the percentage of that?
I'm finding out right now.
0.5% of the people. While you're doing that, I'm going to light this. What's this wood you have here?
This is called Palo Santo.
Yeah, so we're lighting. I have a cigar lighter for those audio only, because we get a lot of audio.
So that's
downloads.
For the amount of wanderers that are incarnate here right now. That is 0.8% of the total Earth population.
Oh wow!
So 0.8%.
So think about that.
That's nothing. Smoke it up. So if you consider that those energies, if that's all that has come to show up, and that can actually help with, I know that there's a mathematical formula that the Ra Collective speaks about for what is called a calling. And they said that the bifurcation factor, or the doubling power of somebody calling within a group, the spiritual energy associated with that, as long as it's larger than some sort of threshold of the total global population, does then afford people to come down and say, okay, we can come in here and help. Because there's enough people here on this planet through their consciousness asking for that help. And so you have this incarnation of people come down we're willing to help with these transitions.
Yeah, and this is what Ross says to the question about the wonders. Specifically, those who are strong, intelligent, etc., have a temptation to feel different from those who are less intelligent and less strong.
This is an interesting point, where maybe you are someone that has been genetically afforded certain strength, certain height, certain IQ, certain emotional understanding. And then at that point, you have to make a decision. Am I above everybody else? Or is it just, I'm fortunate in this sense? And how do I still associate and meet people at their level. And this is a very distinct point for these wanderers. They can make, this is where the choice is made consciously, internally within themselves. Am I above everybody else, better than you, or am I here to be one with you, even though I'm afforded these other strengths? Do you see what I'm saying?
So they have the option to go service to self or service to others.
And it's a conscious thing.
Right, and it's a conscious thing because they begin to feel like they're better than.
Right. So it's at that moment of realization of the amount of power somebody has internally, intellectual, and I'm talking about just raw power, not in any sort of polarized format. The polarization happens at that point. Once there's a recognition that I have the ability to do something that others can't, but the question is, do I say that I'm better than them for being able to do so, or am I still going to meet them where they are? That is the defining point for these wanderers. And that's what is such a toss-up. And a lot of these wanderers continue to wander and be lost because they were upper sixth density, and now they've been totally slated, and they're back down here, and they're like, whoa, I'm just kind of going around here by myself. I'm really unsure. You see what I mean? And then you can become lost at that point.
No, that makes, and because they said this is a distorted perception of oneness with other selves.
Yeah, that's precisely what I'm saying. To think that you're better than is a distortion of unity, is it not? Because that's just, again, it's a hierarchical type of thinking, which is, again, is anti-creational in itself.
Yeah, and then it said it allowed the Orion Group to form the concept of the Holy War, as you may call it. This is a seriously distorted perception. There were many of these wars of a destructive nature.
Well, think about Crusaders.
Yeah.
My religion's better. I'm better than you. You need to come under the power and control of the church. I'm going to come fight and slaughter you because you guys are supposed to be our slaves. You're supposed to be lesser than. God says so. And that's what the problem with the Crusades were. They even thought the children going into fight were worth more than those people over there trying to defend themselves just because they wanted to be Muslim. Right.
Yeah, and it's always when you have a God that is never pleased. This is, and then you get people trying to please it. That's where you get war to me. It's like the ultimate. It's those. There's like stages in that, and then it's like, do I need to get my firstborn? Do I need to take a virgin to a volcano? You see what I'm saying?
Can we talk about the logic of that though? You're God, right? You're all knowing. Why do you need pleasure if you're all knowing? You don't.
Well,
if you are all knowing, there's no sense in having pleasure.
Here's my question to that, and this has been one that I've been pondering for a long time. Why would God demand the biggest sacrifice of you?
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? Like if it's like, okay, this is my firstborn. Why does God need you to suffer the most for you to recognize his presence and be in right standing?
I think it's just that.
I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like this idea that you need to become weak, feeble.
Yes.
You need to. It's that idea of begging for forgiveness. You need to put you. God's not even going to tell you that you're less than him.
Mm-hmm.
You need to recognize that you're less than God.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is.
And we know Moses was in the Orion Group.
Yeah, heavily influenced by it.
Because if you look at the 10 Commandments, those are going against your free will. So
every single one.
Automatically, you can thou shalt not. That's going against your free will.
And if you look at the literature from a sixth density being called the Arahat Athersada, and we did a podcast on this,
mm-hmm.
they're not called the 12 Commandments. No one is commanded to do anything. It's called the Dodecalogue. It says these are the creational laws of physics. You can choose to live by them.
Right.
That's up to you. And also, here are the recommendations we give with it. We don't command.
Mm-mm.
This is just what it is. And we recommend that following these is good and also doing this may be beneficial to you.
But I mean, look at Judaism and Christianity, all based off the 10 Commandments.
It's all based off of someone ripping your free will away.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't even add up. I'll bring in the Dodecalogue literature, and we can discuss every single one.
Yeah, no, I think that would be awesome. So then he goes into says this. Could you tell me if you're saying the Orion Group was successful in polluting, shall we say, some of the positively oriented prophets with messages of doom?
Sure.
I am Raw. This is correct. Your next query shall be the last full query for this session. This is due to the sincere belief of fourth density negative that to love self is to love all. So I want to stop right there.
Yeah. So The idea is that if I love myself before anyone else, that is in the loving act of unity for everything. That is pure ego. We had an episode on that.
Mm-hmm.
Loving the self, having ego do that control is strictly hierarchy and creating a sense of other and disunity. It's the opposite of love. It's a complete distortion. Love is about understanding and unity. But if you say, oh, I only love myself, what are you talking about? It's disunifying.
Well, you have to look at it like you have a all-powerful 10,000 lumens flashlight.
Yeah.
And then you're going to take all that stream of light and love, and then you're going to pollute it through because you're the center now, because Ross says this, love to self is love to all.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's you're not love is not the center, you're the center.
Correct.
And then it's filtered. Now you got like 1,000 lumens instead of 100,000. It's filtered through that.
It's like if you're going to watch an eclipse, you put a pinhole in a paper, you're only allowing a little bit of the light to come through.
Because I want people to understand that love and light is eternal. Mm-hmm. The ego, the mind, was born with you.
Yeah, that's temporary stuff. And so if you're putting that before things that are truthful and eternal, you're distorting your perspectives, reality, and everything else.
So why would you have any faith? I'm going to use that word faith in a negative way. Why would you have any faith in this mind that was born when you were born? And learned when you would learn. When you have a mind that's eternal.
Yeah.
And you have a stream of consciousness that's always there for you and available, and you have laws that are eternal.
I think because
you just rely on that.
A lot of people haven't, since they were young, been taught to reach down deep into themselves.
Yes.
It's never been a focus. So the thought of having something eternal like that was non-existent. And so all their focus was, well, maybe it is just my ego. Maybe that is all there is. But I think it's ridiculous to think that this God is this thing that is timeless, but I'm the thing that's limited. How does that make any sense? How is he bound by different laws that I'm not bound to?
Yeah, and you become...
It's not a law at that point.
No, it's like the laws that we have here in this world, in all the different types of countries and all the different ones, and you can see just negativity and ego over and over and over again. Sorry, I'm yelling, guys. I can't believe
like a shot of adrenaline through the chest? Like Pulp Fiction?
Yeah, no, we should do that slapping contest real fast. That would wake me up.
I'm going to slap you so hard in the face.
I know, that would wake me up. I'd be like, okay, my face is fucked up and stinging. Let's go, guys. No, but he says this. He says that is to love self is to love all. Each other self, which is thus either taught or enslaved, thus has a teacher which teaches love of self.
Yeah.
So if you're
taught
taught and enslaved, the word enslaved is really important.
Yeah, you're taught to be enslaved. Mm-hmm. And once you are enslaved, then they come and they give you more information to say, it is all about you. It's not about anybody else. This is all your fault. Blah, 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 blah.
But you need a teacher then. You need another negative self to reinforce the negative self.
Yeah, of course
in
you.
So this teacher is all about you. It's all about you. It's all about you. It's all about you. Yes, I'm receiving this. It's all about me. It's all about me. It's all of me. And then, but you cannot, because you're so external focused, your teacher reason has to be external, not the teacher that's internally inside of you.
That's precisely correct. And that's why it's so important to have these groups like the Orion Group. It's not like they should cease to exist. You need to have that stuff there. You need to learn from these very negative catalysts. That's why it's there. And that's why Ross said it's all distortion, but all of it leads to unity in the end.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can be negative oriented and be an Albert Einstein and help the world.
Of course you can.
Yeah. Just wisdom and...
No, not even wisdom. It's just pure intellect.
Yeah, but I mean, even service to self could if they're a brilliant engineer...
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? Would be service to others, in the sense of their invention, even though they're all about themselves, that invention that they created could help mankind.
Well,
you know what I mean?
So something negative can still lead to something positive.
Always. So
that's the gist of the whole series, folks, and we're done. HDL's over.
He says, raw, they say, exposed to this teaching, it is intended that there be brought to fruition an harvest of fourth density negative or self-serving mind, body, spirit complexes.
Mm-hmm.
So here once again we're getting into the fruitation. He says he brought to fruition an harvest of fourth density negative.
Yeah, the fruits, right? So after there's been knowledge and that has been like you're planting seeds, the seeds have rooted themselves. They've grown, and at the top of the crop after it's learned, it generates a fruit, and this fruit is a very service to self fruit. This is what it is harvesting. It is harvesting these deeply ingrained thoughts of service to self, of selfishness, of a left-hand path, of a path that's beneficial to individuals that sit within the Orion constellation area, Southern Cross, Cassiopeia area. That's the focus. And that's what they're talking about. It's after they get to a point of knowingness of a service to self, that's when you want to harvest those people. That's when you want to be like, okay, you're good to go now. Let's separate you from the rest of these groups so you can go here and now control those other people that are unknowing.
Yeah.
That's that idea.
So they question him about Star Wars. This was really interesting. The movie.
This was cool.
Yeah. This helps explain for a lot of people. They said, you mentioned the word empire in relation to the Orion Group. I have thought for some time that the movie Star Wars was somehow an allegory in part for what is actually happening. Is this correct? I am Ra. This is correct in the same way that a simple children's story is allegory for physical, philosophical, social, complex, distortion, understanding.
Snap. Are they saying Star Wars was made for children? They're like, how obvious is the simplicity of what is going on here? It's a polarization. You have forces of light and dark.
Yeah.
And there are some very, very evil people, but the forces of light prevail in the end. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. It's a children's story. It teaches about the structure of those people. What happens when you think of Darth Vader?
Yeah, he's like the evil villain.
Yeah, but what happens though? He's so evil.
Right.
So evil. He becomes so knowing, but he got to a point of knowingness.
Yes.
And then the helmet's removed.
Yes.
And then it becomes a point of forgiveness and understanding.
Yeah, and this is cool. He says this is a simple children's story as an allegory for physical, philosophical, social, complex, distortion, understanding. And so, when I was looking at, especially with the Jedi, and
such
then
a cool word.
You have this power. Now you can use it, service others, service yourself.
Yeah, it's your choice.
Yeah. And then
that's almost like the Jedis are like the wanderers.
Yes.
What do you want to do? Mm-hmm. What do you want to be? Here's your choice. Now that you've recognized you have this, how is it going to be used?
You still have the power either way.
Regardless.
Yeah. I mean, Darth Vader is just as powerful as anyone else.
It's not going anywhere. It's just how do you want to use it?
Yeah.
But like, imagine Darth Vader is like that upper 6 density and wants to do that transition. He snaps right all over to the the forgiveness.
Dude, we could run this for days.
On Star Wars.
The Force.
Yeah.
It doesn't become less than because it's negative or more than because it's positive.
No, it's force.
Yes.
It is pure force. Think of it in the sense of physics, right? That's all it is. Don't put a dogma on it.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's just force. The question is, how do you want to use it? When I say there's people that are powerful, there are great powerful people out there, but it's the choice of how that power is used. What's the intention that sits behind it? How do you define the path you want to take? If it's a tool that you're using, how do you want to use that tool?
Yeah, because it's always funny. It's like, in the Bible, it talks about angels and demons, and demons are fallen angels, and they're negative and evil. And then these positive, powerful, heavenly angels, that stuck with God, that didn't, shake their fist at God and think that they were God, supposedly. And so, but because they're positive and they're powerful and they're in heaven, they can always beat a demon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what's with that?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It's like the force stays the same
regardless
of because all the force is a masterization of consciousness.
That's it. It's when Luke Skywalker's on Hoth, hanging upside down with the Yeti in there. He closes his eyes and he focuses. He doesn't pull the lightsaber into his hand with his eyeballs open. He needs to concentrate. Mm-hmm. It's a focus of consciousness. Mm-hmm. That's what power is. A lot of people lack focus. They lack the ability to still their thoughts. They have the idea of focusing on nothing is a very difficult thing for people to do. There's always has to be something in there filling that time and that space, that void within their head. But as you continue to do that, those are the things that cause you to spiral and distract you from the stuff that really matters.
That makes sense. This one I didn't understand, so I thought we'd mention it.
I want to be a fucking Jedi.
Yeah, just go. I always liked the Darth Maul.
Oh yeah, no, he's cool.
He's just like cool. It's like really crazy red and black.
I can see you throwing on a hood and being like, Sith Lord, lightning out of my fingers. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's funny.
Talk like a lift, like this. You come disappoint me,
It's so funny.
Like, dude, what's wrong with your jaw?
Didn't he also
Isn't this
have-
the year like 10,000? They couldn't surgically fix that?
Didn't he
What,
also
God?
have 2 lightsabers?
Who?
Wasn't he always wheeling around 2?
The Sith Lord?
No, the
He just used his hands.
yeah, he just used his hands. No, the Darth Maul.
Darth Maul. No, he had the thing that was like a.
Oh no, it was double. Yeah,
it was
you're
double
right,
on both
yeah.
sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any of them that uses 2? Like a red and a blue one and 2
I don't
hands?
see why not. Probably.
Yeah. I've seen several of them where they've
And who's the other guy? They had that other recent film that came out, and the guy had the one that literally looks like a sword, and it has 2 small beams that come out.
yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I love that.
Totally distracted.
So, what method of communication with the Orion entity would a negative bidder of this type use? So I didn't understand what Ra was saying here, and I don't understand negative bidder.
Holy crap. There is someone that bids and someone that calls. Like a marketplace for finance. Or you're playing poker.
Right. I get it now. Yeah, that makes sense.
You seeing it now?
Yeah,
Is this
'cause-
helping?
Yeah, Ra says, I am Ra. The 2 most usual types of bidding are 1, the use of perversions of sexual magic.
Mm-hmm.
2,
It's like Aleister Crowley kind of stuff.
the use of perversions of ritual magic.
Yeah. So when 2 people are having sex, okay, I'm going to sit you down, Jason. I know.
Oh, I know. I
talk
need to
about
have this conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
There's a potentiator and there's a receiver. So the point of that sort of intimacy and connection on the physical plane is also happening on the spiritual plane at the same time. So if they can essentially interject as a third party during that point and have influence over that energy that's being transferred, something happens there. You know, it's like even if you like watching in the wild, like the male species will become like exhausted after, and then the female becomes energized. So think about how that giving and receiving is actually occurring. So interjecting at that point of that giving and receiving, that can have great influence. And then the other fact of it is that if you're doing a ritual, you're reinforcing these thoughts of consciousness and action in the physical to represent something in the spiritual. So as you continually reinforce these thought patterns, it's almost like a negative affirmation. There's a bidding that is happening, and they will answer that call. Okay? So if I'm bidding to have this stuff, I'm doing a request. I'm saying you need to do this for me. But there's an issue here, is that as you're doing that request, they need to be careful who they're actually giving that energy to. Because if someone's bidding and then they say, oh, you know, I might be 3rd density, but I'm telling you to do something for me, that's the opposite of what the Orion Group wants. They want to be in control, not you.
Yeah, and when I tried to get really logical in this and practical, when the use of perversions of sexual magic, so I was thinking of like Epstein and Epstein Island.
Oh, yeah, Epstein Island, yeah,
yeah,
of course.
and then you know it has a temple. There's a temple there.
Yale Skull and Crossbones.
Yeah, that would be the perversions of ritual magic.
Yeah, and that's the idea, is that we're going to use this perversion of sexual energy or ritual magic to take energy away from these other people.
So now you can see like the Bush family, you know, huge into Skull and Bones, all of them.
Yeah.
And you can see that group of coming. It was in Yale, right?
Yeah, and at Yale, and they would always choose people that were underaged.
Yeah.
They would say it was people that were innocents.
But you had to be part of the elite. There was a bloodline with it because Skull and Bones came from a German death.
That's correct.
Cult.
It's a German death cult. But that's what it is. It's all about that lineage and hierarchy.
Separation. I'm wanting people to see the Orion
We have
effect
our own
here.
line.
Yes.
This is us. We're better and better than you. We're the Merovingian line that comes from the French family that goes back to Jesus Christ. Like,
Right.
what are you talking about? You're just a dude who thinks he's special.
Yeah, but I mean, you can see the Orion Group at influence here in this.
Yeah.
You know, let's separate you. You're better than these are weaker.
Yes, they're weaker, so you're allowed to control.
Yes.
You can go rape them in your death cult.
Yeah.
You can do all these things.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
That's the general idea. They're lesser than you.
Yeah, and I like the way. So that's how you're seeing the Orion Group working in the world today.
Yeah. If people are acting like that in a severe, take your, disunifying, we're better than you, take away your free will, we're a part of these weird cults, you'd be like, whoa, red flag.
Yeah, that would be. In each case, the key to success is the purity of the will of the bidder.
Yeah. So how bad do you want it? You'll be successful in something if every part of you deep down in your core says, this is what I want.
And
I want control more than anything else in this world. I want to be better than anything.
The concentration upon victory over the servant must be nearly perfect.
Concentration. Remember I said people lack concentration? You have a choice of that focus. And that Jedi power could be used for good or bad. Do you see how that's working?
Yeah, I see how that.
So you can be so good, so negative, so good, so concentrated about being negative that you're gonna really be the expert in it, and things are gonna happen your way. You're so service to self, it's a guarantee almost every single time.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, because there's just so much energy that goes into trying to like service to others. It's like, oh, you just service to others. You have the light and love. There you go. We're off.
All I have to do is understand who you are.
So many like rules and regulations and things you have to do to even work to be in the Orion Group.
What a hassle.
I mean? It's just like
But every time they put that work in, it again reinforces that thought that we're better than you. Look what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We know all the black magic. We know all the occult stuff. We have this knowledge that shouldn't be shared with you. It's only for a select group. And every time we do it and we're successful with it, it reinforces the fact that we're better.
Yeah, and maybe we can close on this because we're almost done. He said the perversions of ritual magic. Not ritual magic in and of itself, but the perversions of ritual magic. And so I was like, in my thought process, I was like, I was like, what are they thinking it's perverse?
Well,
what is perverse?
Let's talk about what the word perversion means. Perversion is a type of human behavior. Human. Strictly human being, okay? Is a type of human behavior that deviates from that which is understood to be orthodox or normal. So if they're doing perverse, like sex cult ritual stuff, you look at it and you'd be like, that is unnatural.
Drinking,
deforming them, drinking
pretending like
blood.
wine is blood, and then drinking it out of a skull.
Yes. So, although the term perversion can refer to a variety of forms of deviation, so going away from the norm, it is most often used to describe sexual behaviors that are considered particularly abnormal, repulsive, or obsessive. So you can see that the word choice that the Raw Collective used is perfect. Absolutely perfect. And every single one of those words describing perversion is a deviation from unity. The word is describing a distortion in a ritual act and a sexual act. Both of those things. Isn't that incredible?
So
even for yourself, if you're going to have sex,
right?
Think about it in the sense of unity, not just me doing this for myself. Be there with that person.
Oh, yeah. No, I see what you're saying. So you could do service to others or service to self with that. You could say, I need to have this for myself to gratify myself.
Yeah. Again, then it becomes service to self.
And then where service to others would be, I want unity in this partnership with mutual pleasure.
Otherwise, if it's service to self, no pun intended, you're just unloading this. No, I know that. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you're unloading this negatively oriented energy into a receiver.
Right.
If you think about it just in the sense of, that sort of biology.
So I mean, on a practical side of things, you should make sure you got your head on straight before you have sex.
What's with all these puns?
We out before we ruin this episode.
We're out of here.